Last summer during a Canadian heat wave, 34 degrees C, that's 93 Fahrenheit, in my apartment at midnight, fan just pushing hot air from one corner to the other, I stumbled onto something that stopped me cold. No pun intended. And look, I'm Canadian. When it hits 34 here, we're suffering. If you're in Texas, Florida, Arizona, or anywhere in the deep south, where a heat wave means 40 degrees C, 104 Fahrenheit. For weeks at a stretch, I can only imagine. This is for you even more than it's for me. Did you know that damp charcoal drops room temperature by several degrees with zero electricity? I didn't either. I went looking and found out this is a 3,000-year-old principle that Persian architects engineered into their buildings and that most of the modern world completely forgot about. 24 hours later, I had it built. The thermometer dropped 4 degrees C, about 7 degrees F. In 2 hours, $7. No electricity, no moving parts. 15 minutes to build. Here's exactly what I'm going to show you, how the physics works. 30 seconds, you'll get it instantly. The exact parts, where to get them, and how to put it together in under 15 minutes before the next heat wave hits. And how to build versions of this for any size space. Bedroom, barn, chicken coop, dog kennel, camper van, dorm room. Same principle, same price, same 15 minutes. Let's go. And before I explain the physics, here's the number that made me take this seriously. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have documented charcoal-based evaporative coolers dropping room temperature by up to 10 to 15 degrees C, that's 18 to 27 degrees F, below outside air temperature. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Post-Hard Technology measured inside temperatures running 10 to 15 degrees C cooler than ambient. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Engineering and Applied Science documented a maximum temperature drop of 11 degrees C, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, in a single room. These are not backyard experiments. These are controlled peer-reviewed measurements of exactly the kind of build I'm about to show you. In a heat wave, 10 to 15 degrees C is the difference between sleeping and not sleeping, between functioning and not functioning, and it costs $7. Now here's the 30 seconds of physics that explains why it works. You already know evaporation cools things down. That's your body's entire heat management system. Sweat evaporates, pulls heat from your skin. You cool down. The hotter and drier the air, the faster it works. It's why 40 degrees C, 104 Fahrenheit current in Arizona feels survivable, and 30 degrees C, 86 F in Montreal feels like a punishment. What activated charcoal does is take that principle and supercharge it. A single gram of activated charcoal has a surface area of between 500 and 500 mils, the most porous natural material known to exist. That's not a typo, 1 gram. The surface area of a small apartment in a piece of material the size of your thumbnail. All of those microscopic pores hold water, and when warm, dry air moves across the surface, that wet evaporation happens on an enormous scale relative to the material size. The air moving through lowers energy to the phase change. It comes out the other side cooler and cleaner. Cooler because of the evaporation. Cleaner because activated charcoal simultaneously absorbs, chemically binds to volatile organic compounds, odors, airborne bacteria, mold spores, and a range of particulates. The same material that water filter manufacturers put in their products. The same material used in air purifiers retailing for $200 to $400, doing its job passively, continuously for free as long as you keep it damp. 1 tray of charcoal cooling the air, filtering the air, removing odors from the air simultaneously for $7. If you have animals, a barn, a chicken coop, a rabbit hutch, a dog kennel, that last function alone is worth the price of admission. The smell that builds up in animal enclosures in summer heat is a combination of ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, and various organic compounds that activated charcoal is specifically documented to absorb. You're not masking the smell with something else. You're chemically removing it from the air. Here's a quick bit of history, because this one is worth knowing. Persian architects were building wind towers called badgirs as far back as 1000 BCE and possibly earlier. A badge is a tall shaft built into or alongside a building with openings at the top to catch prevailing winds and channel them downward into the rooms below. At the base of the shaft, Persian builders placed wet charcoal and saturated clay pots. The air was forced through the damp material before entering the room, cooling it by 4 to 6 degrees C, 7 to 11 Fahrenheit, through evaporation before it ever touched a person. The most famous surviving badger is in Yaz, Iran, a city that sits in one of the driest deserts on Earth and has been continuously inhabited for over 7,000 years. Summer temperatures in Yaz regularly exceed 40 degrees C, 104 F. The buildings with bad years, documented by architectural researchers from the University of New South Wales, maintained interior temperatures consistently 8 to 12 degrees C, 14 to 22 F, lower than outside air during peak afternoon heat, no electricity, no refrigerant, wet charcoal and airflow. They figured this out 3,000 years ago. We surrounded ourselves with air conditioners and forgot. Here's what you need for the basic build. Activated charcoal, the kind sold for aquarium filters. Adult loose black granules in a bag available at any pet store or on Amazon. A 500g bag costs $5 to $8 and is enough to fill a standard baking tray. You can also use activated charcoal sold for air purifiers or bulk horticultural charcoal, which runs slightly cheaper per gram. Do not use barbecue charcoal briquettes. That's a completely different material, not porous in the same way, and won't produce the same result. Activated charcoal only, a shallow tray or container, a baking pan, a plastic storage tray, a wooden box lined with plastic sheeting, anything that holds the charcoal in a layer and allows air to move across it. Spread the charcoal in a layer roughly 3 to 5 centimeters deep. Water. Pour it over the charcoal until the granules are fully saturated and just beginning to pool at the bottom. Let it absorb for 5 minutes. Then drain any standing water. You want the charcoal wet, but not sitting in puddles. Saturated like a wet sponge. The source of airflow. An open window with a natural breeze works well. A battery-powered or USB fan is better. Even a small one aimed across the tray dramatically increases evaporation rate and cooling effect. For a fully passive zero electricity version, position the tray in the path of the prevailing breeze from your coolest window. That's it. $6 to $8 in 30 minutes. Here's how to get the most out of it. Placement matters more than size. A damp charcoal tray sitting on a table in the middle of a room does almost nothing. The moist air just rises and mixes without cooling the space you're actually in. Place the tray on the floor near the air intake, the window or door where outside air enters the room, so all incoming air passes across the charcoal before it reaches you. That's the difference between a curiosity and a system. Re-wet the charcoal every morning. It will dry out overnight as evaporation continues. And a dry tray is just a tray of charcoal doing nothing. 30 seconds with a cup of water every morning, and it's back to work. For a small room, a bedroom, a home office, a camper van, a dorm room, one standard baking tray size unit is meaningful. For a larger space, scale up. 2 or 3 trays placed at different air intake points in the same room compound the effect. And here's the version that works for animal enclosures and outbuildings. Build a simple frame from scrap wood, a shallow box open on 2 sides to allow airflow closed on top. Align it with hardware cloth or mesh. Fill it with activated charcoal 6 to 8 centimeters deep. Mount it in the ventilation opening of the coop, hutch, barn, or shed, the gap where air enters. Every breath of wind coming in passes through the charcoal. The air that reaches your animals is cooler, cleaner, and dramatically lower in ammonia and odor compounds. For a chicken coop in July, this is not a comfort upgrade. It's a welfare improvement. Heat stress in poultry begins around 30 degrees C, 86 F, and becomes fatal above 38 degrees C, 100 F. Anything that drops incoming air temperature meaningfully matters. The wall-mounted version for a house works the same way. A charcoal-filled frame set into a window opening or mounted in front of an exhaust fan, pulling hot air through the charcoal before expelling it and allowing cooler, evaporatively conditioned air to replace it. One honest note, because it always belongs, evaporative cooling works best when humidity is below about 50%. In dry climates, the American Southwest, Texas, Nevada, the Great Plains, the Mediterranean, the performance is dramatic and consistent. In humid climates, the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, the Great Lakes region, anywhere that sees muggy summers. Well, the effect is reduced because the air is already carrying significant moisture and the evaporation rate slows. You'll still get some cooling and you'll get the full air filtration benefit regardless of humidity, but the temperature drop in a humid environment will be closer to 2 or 3 degrees C, 4 to 5 F rather than 6 to 8 degree, 11 to 14 F. That's still useful. Just set expectations accordingly. Recharge the charcoal every month or two by spreading it on a tray and leaving it in direct sunlight for a full day. UV exposure and heat release the absorbed compounds from the pores and reset the material to full capacity. It doesn't wear out, it just needs refreshing. One $7 bag maintained lasts an entire season. I want to leave you with something. The air conditioner in a standard North American home runs for roughly 750 hours per summer season. At average electricity rates, that's somewhere between $150 and $400 in cooling costs depending on the unit and the climate. It also produces refrigerant emissions, requires professional maintenance, and when it breaks in week 3 of a July heat wave, you are not sleeping. The system I just described costs $7, runs on water, filters and cools and deodorizes the air simultaneously. Works for a bedroom, a barn, a doghouse, a rabbit cage, a camper van, a dorm room, a greenhouse, a server closet, anything with airflow and something worth cooling. Persian architects were engineering this into civic buildings 3,000 years ago, and it worked well enough that those buildings are still standing and still studied. We didn't forget this because it stopped working. We forgot it because someone figured out how to sell us something that plugs into the wall instead. Now you know how to unplug. If this gave you something useful today, share it with someone who's about to spend money they don't need to spend on cooling this summer. The subscribe button is how this channel keeps digging these things up. See you in the next one.